this meeting. It's opening and welcome. Apologies 2, and 3, it's feedback on the supply chain management work session and means to improve procurement processes and irregularities in the DOD. And then 4 is update by Chief of Logistics on contract management for fuel, rations, uniform, and vehicle acquisition. And 5, we consider and adopt our minutes, and then we close the meeting. Item number 6. The acting chief financial officer has requested to swap 3 and 4. He will start with 4 and then move to 3. So I said we are not married to any particular order. If they feel comfortable swapping the 2 items, is up to them to do so. We're all interested in the content or the substance, as it were. Let me just check if we do have the quorum. Do you have the quorum, Brian? We do have the quorum. Let me welcome all of you colleagues, and thank you for availing yourself this morning. We hope to finish this meeting by 12 o'clock, because I know colleagues have to travel to Parliament. The latest would be 12:30. But I'm not going to limit the discussion in any way. I will allow the flow of the meeting. If it takes us to 1, so be it. It's your meeting. I'm simply just facilitating the ease of flow of the discussions. All right, be that as it may, let me note apologies. Are there any apologies?
That is correct. We now who's unable to attend to it. We have approached from the minister who has ministerial. We follow from the minister who was able to attend. We also have an apology chair from the Secretary for Defense, who has the USA
So, Chair, Brian is incredibly inaudible. I don't know where the problem is, on my side or his side, but it's breaking up incredibly.
It's on his side, Mr. Murray, and the line. His line is not stable. Brian, can you try again?
We have an apology from Minister. We also have an apology to Minister and to Minister. We also have an apology from General Minister, and the last apology, Chair, is from the Acting Secretary for Defense, who's unable to the USA South Africa Defense Committee, which is in Washington. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. All right, it was not clear, but please record those apologies. Let me go to the department.
Chairperson, before you go to the department, apologies, I raised my hand. I'm with Memutapo because she's having problems with her gadgets. She's with me in the room. It must be recorded that she's present in the meeting.
Ma'am Tapo, good morning.
Good morning, Chairperson.
How are you?
And colleagues.
Good. Thank you very much. You are welcome as well.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Chairperson?
Yes, sir.
Chairperson? Yes. Chair, I'm not well. I've taken medication, but I'll keep trying to be in the meeting. So in case the medication, is heavier, but I'll be trying, but I'm not well.
Okay.
In case I fail to finish the meeting.
No, thank you very much. That is noted. We wish you a recovery, colleague.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks.
Chair.
Thank you. All right. So, and let me check on the side of the department. I welcome. Let me check on the platform. I'm not too sure if it would be visible, but I know the acting CFO is in the meeting. Acting CFO.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the Portfolio Committee on Defense. Chair, thanks for the apology that has been rendered by Brian on behalf of the accounting officer. However, in a meeting with Chief Logistics, Lieutenant General Ndlovu, we are also in a meeting with Deputy Chief Army, that is Major General Jacobu, and then we also have Major General Sean Stratford, who will do the presentation on the Army-related uniform. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I welcome the team that is in the meeting, representing the Department of Defense. You are all welcome. Chief Logistics, Deputy Chief Army, and General Stratford. I hope I'm correct, General. All right, so that's the team. And of course, others who are part of the team who are supporting the three. Colleagues, thank you very much. And we are meeting today to focus on procurement issues in the department, as well as contract management. But on contract management, we are zooming on just 3 or 4 items. It's food, rations, how important food is in the military, fuel, in fact, food and fuel. The two you can't do without. It doesn't matter what happened. It's food and fuel. It's uniform. Those 3, they're hand in glove, as well as the acquisition of the vehicles. So it's one to look at contract management in the department through those 4 areas identified. And when you present acting CFO, in my previous environment, big departments would not go without a contract manager, somebody who brings all contracts and keep track on each one of them. So I don't know if you have someone dedicated to that task, or you have simply just allocated to the chief log, but the chief log is in the meeting. I know that AMSCO does contract management, but on contracts that they are managing on behalf of the department. But I still believe that the department still has to have someone that someone who, a nodal point within the department that oversees all contracts, as it were, looks at when are these contracts expiring, and look at the issue of project cost overruns. I mean, if we had that person, that nodal point, I don't think that the challenges that we had in one military hospital, that today we spend so much, the money was spent, but there is very little to show for it. As if we all wake up, I mean, the department simply wakes up to that situation. Contracts, they expire and moved to month through month. And it's not a welcome thing, because when you enter into contract, it's fixed, you know when it's going to expire. So a process must then be put in place to either recommend the extension or get into a new arrangement or contractual arrangement. And so there are instances where the department is failing to adhere to competitive bidding, instances where 3 codes are not sourced, all of that leading to negative findings by the Office of the Auditor General. And linked to this particular issue, it's delegations. On the visits we have conducted to various military sites, and the managers there, complaining that they don't have adequate delegations, that they have to run to the central point for procurement to happen. Things that really could easily be dealt with at a local level. They have to move up to a central point. So in other words, a military base will not even aid economic development where it is located, because everything is moved up to the center. There's been a general outcry. We visited, in fact, the 2 hospitals we visited in Bloemfontein and in Cape Town, both of them, the managers there were actually complaining that they do not have sufficient delegations. So, and then of course, in other areas as well. So that's been the issue. And then we felt that let's meet and have a conversation on these areas. First with these 4 areas that we've identified, and then deal with procurement in general. I think that is sufficient to introduce the issues. Acting CFO, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair, for the opening remarks. And Chair, yes, we do concur with you in the sense of, as a department, we do not have a procurement officer or a contract or someone who is responsible for the entire management of procurement within the Department of Defense. The end users, the services and divisions, manage their own individual contracts. But subsequent to us indicating we will meet at a work session to discuss these things, these were part of the resolutions that we took, that we must seriously consider a procurement officer or a chief procurement officer to manage all contracts, procurement-related contracts within the Department of Defense. So it's one of those resolutions that we took, and we are working on it. to try and manage that. Because what we do right now is within the civilian environment, we have an oversight body around it, and then within the services, CLOG manages all procurement-related transactions, but it's not centralized in the sense of the managing of individual contracts that come from service and divisions. But we will look into it, and when we report back to you in future, we should be able to come up with a solution in terms of how to manage contracts within the organization. Chair, as indicated, we will start off with a presentation on the fuel, the rations, and the D vehicles, which should be done by CLOG, by Colonel Klute. And once we finalize with that, then General Stratford will do the one on uniforms, and we'll conclude the presentations with the last one that deals with the work session and how we plan on dealing with the challenges around procurement. Thank you, Chair. We will start off with Colonel Klute with the first presentation.
Thank you very much. Colonel, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, Acting CFO, members of the Portfolio Committee on Defense.
Sorry, is that Chief Log?
Yes, I'm Lieutenant General Ndlovu, Chief of Logistics.
Thank you very much. Okay, sir, over to you. You may continue.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Also, I would like to apologize. I am not feeling very well, so please bear with me with my irritating cough.
Okay.
We will give the contract management with regard to the fuel rations and as well as the vehicle presentation, which will be done by Kenneth Klute. And the uniform will be presented by the Army, as the uniform is decentralized and managed by the product system managers from the services. So we'll start with the fuel rations as well as the vehicles. May I hand over to Kenneth Klute? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, General. Over to you, Kenneth.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Chairperson, members of the Portfolio Committee, CLOG, Deputy Chief Army, Chief Director Force Preparation, Acting CFO, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I am Colonel Tony Klute, and I will be doing this presentation to you in terms of feedback from the previous presentation in terms of procurement. The Department of Defense was tasked to prepare an update on the status of the fuel, wet and dry rations, patrol ration packs, and the procurement of D vehicles for the Portfolio Committee on Defense. My aim as such is very similar to that of my introduction. So allow me to take you straight to my scope. It's the update on the procurement of essential goods and services for the Department of Defense, namely fuel contract, wet and dry ration contract, patrol ration packs, and the procurement of D vehicles. I just want to state that in an ideal world, the total procurement process should take nothing less than 90 working days. And that is in an ideal world with no caveats and obstacles or changes and challenges within the process. This should not exceed 90 days. Which takes me straight to the fuel contract and the status of the fuel contract. Our current contract expired at the end of October 2021. From November 2021 until December 2022, fuel in the Defence Force in the department was procured by means of price quotation, which led to the Defence Force paying anything between R1.50 to R3 a litre more than the pump price, placing strain on resources. Our bulk fuel infrastructures are all dated and are at least 40 to 50 years old and no longer lead and meet the legislation in terms of storage of bulk fuel. With this in mind, the Military Command Council approved the decision brief for the development of a fuel system capability for the DOD in support of the Central Energy Fund and in line with the Memorandum of Cooperation.
Sorry, Colonel. I think the presentation is running ahead of you.
Okay, I think he's got it back now. We're back in line. So,
yes, thank you so much.
Apologies, sir. Between the the Central Energy Fund and the DOD, which was signed in November of 2022. An integrated project team was established consisting of specialists from services and divisions to be able to manage this project. The DOD's technical team and the Petro SA technical teams held meetings to finalize the pricing models. This also went back and forward until it came to a pricing model and structure which was agreeable to the department and felt within the department's financial budget. The service level agreement is in its final stages of approval, and in the meanwhile, the units and divisions are placing their contracts against Petro SA as per the normal DOD procurement procedures and are procuring fuel at the current pump price, which varies from region to region, coastal, inland, and the various zoning areas, as we are all aware of the petrol price across the country from area to area. So that is the current status of the fuel contract. So we are in the final stages of the service level agreements between the two parties. So then we move on to the wet and dry ration contract. The terms of reference serve at the department's commercial procurement board and were referred back for the finalization of branded names and specifications to be finalized as part of the terms of reference. Now, the importance of branded names and specifications is to allow that we are comparing apples with apples, so that each prospective supplier knows what they are quoting on. In other words, a simple example, if it is specified as a can of Koo baked beans, that everyone, when it comes to the pricing model, then apply a tin of Koo baked beans. In terms of specifications, this is specifically for your wet and your fresh producers. This is to ensure that things like meat, that the meat is at a specific grade, that the fat content of meats, and this is a highly technical environment where dietitians and food technologists are way better qualified to explain the technicalities, but this is a detailed process to ensure also that everyone is competing on the equal foot when this goes out to tender. Currently, the branded names was recommended by CLOG in May of 2023 and has been forwarded to CSANDF and then to the Secretary of Defense for approval. The specifications, which can be approved at CLOG's level, has already been approved. We expect this final approval process of the branded names by all the signatories to be finalized no later than 6 weeks from date. Once these documents have been received, this will serve once again on the DCPB board for approval, and then the advertisements can be placed and that the normal tender process can be followed. Currently, we are procuring wet and dry rations through a price quotation per unit per requirements. That is in terms of the wet and dry rations. So then in terms of the ration patrol packs or RAP packs, better known amongst the soldiers, these are the packs utilized by the forces deployed on our borders and in our various mission areas. The terms of reference also served on the DCPB, and currently the process is in a very advanced stage. Sample evaluation took place of the various suppliers who, the bidders who bidded in the beginning of 2023. There was an excess of 400 suppliers that had to be evaluated. Now, if one considers that the team must evaluate 400 suppliers, 400 premises, then one can understand that the ideal time of 90 days is placed under strain. This evaluation process is now completed, and we are currently in the final stages of a quality assurance process, ensuring that those members or those possible suppliers who have been eliminated, that proper due process has been followed, and we are awaiting our internal divisions feedback as to the process as followed. Once that is received, it is imminent within the next week or so, we should receive that. That then this tool will serve on the DCPB to follow the normal procurement process going forward. So then going to the vehicle master plan. The master plan for to the procurement of D vehicles, also known in the military as our white fleet. Although I think in Army terms, it's a brown fleet, but better known as a white fleet. The master plan has been finalized and in accordance to the Defence Force establishment tables. The department is a participant to the National Treasury RT57 contract, like every other department. The National Treasury contract, however, did expire in March 2023. At present, they extended the contract to the end of June, awaiting the finalization of their contract. But it must just be stressed that the total management of this contract is a National Treasury responsibility, and we are just a mere participant in this contract process. The contract consists of sedans, bakkies, sport utility vehicles, multi-purpose vehicles, panel vans, buses, trucks. Currently, the department is procuring the vehicles, all our current vehicles required against the contract. All our new vehicles are procured with maintenance plans in place for the duration of the vehicle according to the lifespan model the Defence Force applies. So that is our feedback. And in conclusion, the department is committed to execute its mandate within Treasury regulations and budgetary constraints, professional dedication, pride, and loyalty. I thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Kenan. We can then move to the next presentation as suggested by the General, Chief Log.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Good morning.
Members of the Portfolio Committee on Defense and Metro Veterans.
Is General Jacobi?
Yes, sir. The acting CFO, respectful to the CLOG and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, as already explained by the Chair, Major General Jacobi, the Deputy Chief of the Army. So our portion in the presentation by CLOG is the uniform part. It is a presentation that will be delivered by Major General Stratford, who was responsible for equipment in the Army. The presentation is in threefold. It's about the office dress that we started procuring some couple of years ago to replace the old office dress, as well as the current camouflage uniform that we are utilizing. And lastly, the new camouflage uniform that we are busy investigating. But the details of this project will be delivered by Major General Stratford. Please come in, Sean. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, General.
Right, thank you, General Diakopo. Am I audible, Chairperson?
Yes, you are, General Stratford.
Is my presentation also visible?
Is visible, sir. If you can just change the presentation mode, just go right down. There is that thing that looks like a vase.
Okay.
Just below that, left, towards your left.
That's it.
That thing, yeah.
Okay, I believe, thank you very much, Chairperson.
I can be a trainer, General, you can say that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. If I can acknowledge the Chairperson, if I can also acknowledge CLOG as well as the Deputy Chief of the Army. And then if I can also acknowledge all the members of the Portfolio Committee on Defense and Military Veterans. Can I also say all protocols are observed? As introduced, I'm Major General Sean Stratford, and I'm going to be providing an update of the uniform. A very short background. We say that the textile and uniform design must increase the survivability of the soldier. Actually, sorry, the part of my screen is being blocked here. Right, that's better. Right, and then we also say that we operate in both friendly and hostile environments. Now, it's very important, the fabric must have the following functionalities. Most definitely protection against all the elements, whether it be hot, whether it be cold. And we've also got a nice scientific formula here for the composition of that fabric. We say at least 65% cotton and then 35% polyester, which provides that durability as well as strength. It must provide insulation. It must provide some form of protection against the sun. And 10 to 1, the most important function is the camouflage and concealment. Lastly, we say that it mustn't shrink if it's washed, and ideally it mustn't degrade over a very short time period. If I just move to the boots very shortly, we have found that we've had challenges with the current boots that we are utilizing. And what we are busy doing now is we interacting with the CSIR. With their research capability, we are busy improving both the durability as well as the quality of the existing boots. And what is important to note here is that they will undergo wearer trials the end of next month, the beginning of August. I'll speak a little bit later, more in detail in terms of what CSIR is doing. I think it's important just for the audience to get a snapshot of what the three different uniforms look like. On the left, we have the new service dress. In the middle, we've got the current camouflage. I think that is well known to everybody. And on the right, we've got the new camouflage. In fact, it was unveiled by Chief of the Army during November in CTC with our big divisional exercise in Luatla. So that is still waiting to be utilized by everybody. I think the scope was a given, so I'm going to touch on the current camouflage uniform and boots. I'll quickly touch on some of the challenges. I think the next part is very important, the availability and quantity. You'll see that there's also a slight interpretation when you look at the numbers. I'll give that. Then I'll focus on the new camouflage uniform, give you an update where we are now. And then my last 2-3 slides will be focusing on the new service dress. And obviously throughout the presentation, you'll see there's a common denominator, and that is availability of funds to procure these commodities. Right, in terms of the challenges, we know that the current fabric, as we are wearing now, has been known to be misused by some of the citizens. Some people see it as fashion cloth. And you know, the challenge here is it does tarnish the image of the South African Army. So if you look at the picture on the left, there's a 3-year-old wearing our current camouflage. Some mother or grandmother went and made it, but the fact is it's wrong. On the right-hand side, you can see the uniform integrated with a civilian boot. Again, it's not the right thing to do. However, because we've identified these challenges, working with CSIR, we've been able to address both the design and the manufacture of the new camouflage by means of patent protection. I think that was very important. So now, if with the new camouflage, when it's rolled out, if anybody is wearing it, the police have got the full mandate as well as the military to conduct an arrest and confiscate that uniform. So that is another tick in the box in terms of the new camouflage. Very quickly, some of the other challenges. We know that the current uniform, if it does get wet or if there's excessive expiring, it does tend to become very bulky, very weighty. That becomes provides a discomfort to the soldier. And obviously, when it's washed, the textile also takes a reasonable time to dry. A big challenge as well is fading, losing its color, which I believe with the new camouflage dress has been addressed. I've already worn the uniform, and I can already say that it is It is a very good quality, very strong and very lightweight. In terms of the challenges, very quickly, in terms of the boots, we were saying it has failures. There are some of the challenges listed: poor waterproofing, the hardening of the leather when dried after getting wet. The leather does not breathe. The leather does not dry quickly. The outer stitches fail, resulting in lower sole coming apart, and the inner stitches rot, especially when it comes into contact with water, resulting in a detachment from the sole. So those are some of the challenges that we experience. We were also specifically requested to reflect what is available in our depots. Now, it looks like it's a lot. You know, if you look, 31,000 pairs of trousers and long sleeves, it is a lot. Short sleeves, 34,000. Let me touch on coveralls, 27,000, mainly used by our technical guys, as well as the MSDS grouping. But there's a challenge. You can clearly see I've provided an interpretation there. Although the numbers are very high, the challenge with those trousers and long sleeves, short sleeves, is that at least 90% is either too big or it is too small. Also bearing in mind that these uniforms were procured pre-2012, and they were basically accommodating the bigger, bold members who have to a large extent exited the SANDF. With our interaction with the CSR, we are looking at what is known as popular sizes. In fact, CSR has gone the extra mile. Some of the battalions, the whole of the ACC, the MCC were physically measured to limit absolute wastage. So it's basically tailored for the body. And we'll continue with this throughout the wearer trials. I believe saving money and definitely keeping wastage to an absolute limit. Now, we also had to go and do something internally with all these big sizes that we have and small and very small sizes that we have. So we've generated a tailor capability, and they're busy resizing the garments. They're quite successful, although only 3 members working on the project currently. They are having a bit of an impact, but the intention is now to go and expand on this capability. For example, we've already bought 10 state-of-the-art overhead lockers. Now it's just a matter of getting the people there, and we're going to start doing this in a little bit of a bigger size, and possibly also extend that into eventually when the new service dress is rolled out. So we are doing something about these big sizes and small sizes. I'll go to the next slide. It's just a continuation. In terms of our current status, we're busy procuring 2,900 pairs of boots, as well as 1,750 uniforms. Mainly, again, you'll see their priority written in red for our MSDS intake 2024, and also providing limited support to our force employment requirements, especially those forces that are deployed on our borders. What is important to also note is that the textile available in the depot for the cut, make, and trim, we can provide 2,284 sets of uniform. But there the challenge is funding. And if you wanted a number there, we're looking at about 3.6 million required to go and complete the cut, make, and trim of the old uniform, the 2,284 sets. In terms of the shortages, I've already addressed. I said there's a common denominator, it's funding. And then just to give you an idea of where we're going with the old uniform, new uniform, we say that the current camouflage uniform will be sustained, although in a very limited fashion, until the wearer trials have been approved, and then we can start rolling out the new camouflage uniform. So again, just trying to maintain effectiveness, efficiency, and limiting waste to an absolute limit. There's again the uniform, pictorial representation, the new camouflage dress, as well as the waxies, as well as the combat boots that will now be rolled out. You'll see in the next slide who it's going to be rolled out to. Waxies mainly utilized by the special forces, and I can say that CSR has gone to great lengths, at least for the last 24 months, of improving on these boots. We've already had a preliminary feedback where limited amounts were provided to the soldier, and there was further improvement. So I can say that a lot of good work has been done by them. In terms of the way forward, I've already addressed our partnership with the CSR. You can cast your eyes there on the wearer trial groupings. Already mentioned, we've already rolled out to the MCC, ACC 85 sets. That's why I can reflect on wearing it and really saying that it's very good quality and it's extremely light and durable. In terms of the funding, you can see internally we've had ring-fence 20 million from the Army side with this project, and we were very lucky and we're very grateful to the DP Beck funding, 122 million, which was received last year, October 2022, and I believe it's being utilized or being put to good use. Just to give you an idea of how many people we can clothe with this new camouflage, it's approximately 6,719 members will receive this uniform for at least a year to undergo wearer trials. And then the last bullet there, just giving you a snapshot. We want to start rolling this out end of July, beginning of August. To Tensai, they're already in the DRC, the QRF, the Quick Reaction Force, the TIU, the Tactical Intelligence Unit, and that's going to be followed by 4 SAIs on their way to Mozambique, 14 SAI to DRC, and eventually 6 SAI also to Mozambique. I've actually addressed the first point there to say that it's 1 year wearer trial. And all that's important to note there is eventually CSR will collect all the data, they will analyze the data, and they will see if there's any further rectifications. And I can guarantee you it will be minor rectifications, if at all. Again, I'm also just reflecting in terms of funds, which is direly needed. And you will see that summarized in this slide. If we're going to roll out just to the Army, it's going to cost us about 3 billion. Now that's just based on our current establishment tables, 55,000. I know that feet on the ground is here in the vicinity of 28,000 regular, and then about 11 to 13,000 reserve. So you can do the math for that one as well. If we're going to provide the Navy and the Air Force and SAMs, it's going to increase to plus minus 3 billion. Our last 3 or 4 slides, just an update of the current uniform. If you look at the pictorial representation, we've got a lady there with a short sleeve, long sleeve, with the next one with a winter jacket, and lastly with a ceremonial jacket. You can cast your eyes on what we have available there in terms of numbers, from the long sleeve 7,000 down to the cold weather jacket male 5,000. What we are busy procuring now is slack shirts, trousers, and summer ceremonial jacket. But our big challenge is that we need funding. We have ring-fenced 12.4 million this year, which is very little. At the end of the day, once we've purchased those garments that I've just indicated now, we'll be able to fit another 2,000 members or clothe another 2,000 members with this new service dress. Not enough to roll it out throughout the whole Army. So unfortunately, you've got some members wearing the new service dress, and you've got other members still wearing the old step outs, as we call it. Yes, and then the last point there is we are being assisted by Arms Corps. I think in terms of the way forward, it's important to note that the rollout was actually planned for July 2020. But the challenge was lack of funding. I'm also just reflecting there some of the numbers. If we're going to roll it out to all our members in the Army, it's going to cost in the vicinity of 700 million. If we want to also stock the warehouses, members can do the necessary exchange after 2 or 3 years, whatever the case might be, it's going to increase to just on 2.1 billion. I think my concluding remarks is that, especially with the new service dress, we've made massive strides in improving the quality of especially the new camouflage. Funding, you can see, I said it was a golden thread. I've already reflected the numbers. It remains a challenge. I think with the numbers, we can further improve the image of the SANDF, and for that matter, the Army and the SANDF, and kit our members in full with the uniform that they require. I think that's all from my side, Chair. Thank you very much, and we'll be ready for questions with needed answers. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, General Strafford.
You are muted, Chair.
Sorry. Thank you very much. CFO, do you want to bring up the next presentation right now or after we have deliberated on this one? I know they are interlinked somehow.
Sir, we are in your hands. We are flexible. We will be guided by you.
Okay, maybe let's take the discussion on the first two presentations. At least it will then inform the tone that will underline the next or last presentation. Over to you, Mr. Murray.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much to all the presenters for the information. I want to start off by saying part of the challenges and/or opportunities for the Defence Force and also the responsibilities is to decide on priorities. Yes, in terms of the funding, which is always given as a reason for not achieving objectives and goals, we have to accept that that is a reality. It's not only unique to the Defence Force, it's unique to all South Africans. Our economy is under pressure, so we cannot get everything simultaneously. However, what we require, and I think what South Africans require, and also National Treasury, is to show how we prioritize and making sure where is our priorities. For instance, for me, sending out soldiers to the DRC or Mozambique or to the borders, or even training before they are employed or deployed, is unacceptable if we use finance as an excuse for not properly dress them and issue them with clothes, with shoes, with protection wherever they will be sleeping, and also food. Those are the basics. If you can't provide those basics to a Defence Force, you must close your doors. Step outs, General and Colonel, is a luxury in this situation. So I even want to tell you, don't even talk to me about step outs and formal dressing. If we cannot provide our soldiers with the basics, being shoes, we know special forces and even our ordinary soldiers being deployed into the DRC. They complain about the quality of the shoes, of the inner sole. I haven't heard that has been tested even medically to make sure that people can be on their foot for hours and hours and days and days. And they complain about this, and they must use their own money to improve their shoes for their own feet and their own health. So I'm a bit concerned that we don't see part of the presentation of how there are compromises in, for instance, providing for the basics. So if, as I've said, if we cannot do that, then obviously we are failing. Although that one shoe for the Special Forces has been showed, I just wanted to make sure whether the needs of Special Forces have been taken into account. I recall with our visit to Special Forces School, they told us that the shoes that they prefer and is best for them is often shoes that need to be imported, because the current ones and those produced in South Africa, manufactured in South Africa, just do not meet the basic requirements for Special Forces. To what extent have we accommodated that in firstly providing a South African made product that can compare with the best in the world? Have we done tests and trials to make sure that that can actually compare? If not, to what extent do we allow for Special Forces and even parabats to import shoes? To what extent has the the new uniform, which sounds very good, and again, it's a basic that we have to provide. We cannot hide behind money and budget, because otherwise, you know, you're not a defense force. To what extent has they been allowed to differentiate between ordinary uniforms, uniforms for special forces, and uniforms for parabats? We know that their circumstances is different, and what they are, you know, experiencing out there is quite different from ordinary soldiers. So, to what extent has that been taken into account? And also in terms of the shoes for that inner soul specifically, how has that been provided for? Then I just wanted to go back to the first one. I want to say that that list of B vehicles that has been given there, I want to state it clearly that what are the specs for those B vehicles? And let me be blunt by asking, is the specs been written and provided to buy a Mercedes M-Class or a S-Class or a BMW 7 Series, or is it for a Mahindra SUV, for instance, or for a cheaper model? Because in the past, and we know that the Defence Force and government has always gone for the more exclusive models. So that will also indicate in terms of priorities where we are prepared to spend our money, whether it is on fancy cars or whether it's on durable and suitable uniform. On all the procurements, will the Defence Force and or Arms Corps be handled and treated as a wholesale buyer, procurement agent? Because if we must buy for the South African Defence Force at shelf prices or at pump prices for fuel, I mean that's ripping off government. That's unacceptable. The Defence Force is bigger than any wholesale buyer in South Africa. So surely we should be able to buy everything at wholesale prices. We also should be able to procure at a tax with a tax rebate, a VAT rebate, because that is how big wholesalers are buying that. How far are we to be registered and accepted by National Treasury and Customs and SARS to buy VAT-free? Because we can't charge ourselves just to fund ourselves again. That seems illogical to me. And if we can have a proper repositioning and a restructuring there, that can also assist a long way. On the fuel, I want to ask, I thank you for the indication that we have got a huge challenge with regards to fuel depots and storage facility. We know that about 2 years ago, we had a problem at Air Force Base Waterkloof because of the dolomite and all other challenges, that fuel was not possible. To what extent have we made sure that at least at strategic basis, we can have enough fuel for aircraft, and even in Simonstown for naval vessels and for certain landward vehicles, strategic bases? Because that is also part of an essential. Without fuel, you could just as well close the Defence Force. Those are non-negotiables. So if we cannot do that and we cannot afford fuel storage, we can certainly not afford B vehicles or step out close. Those are some of the indications that one wants to see of how the Defence Force will show National Treasury, listen, we are prepared to go back to basics. Chairperson, the last thing I want to ask about the clothes and the manufacturers. Will that be South African manufactured clothes? Will the material be manufactured in South Africa? Because what we obviously need to have, especially with the assistance of the CSIR and other agencies, is to develop our own products and garments, because then we can proudly say that is proudly South African. But we cannot import from China, either being CMT clothes or the raw material. So where are we there, and to what extent will that impact on our costs? Thank you, Chair, so far. If there are anything else, I will ask you approval to get in later on. Thank you very much.
Fine, I will still welcome you back, Mr. Mare. Honorable Thabo and Honorable Mafanya. So Mafanya will come after Thabo, Honorable Thabo Muthle.
Thanks, Chair. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
All right. I will not switch my video on because I've got connectivity, unstable network. Chair, maybe let me start with the last presentation around uniform. AMSCO has got a capability called econometrics, something of that nature, where they must utilize that capability to assist the defense force, particularly when it comes to the issue of boots or footwear. Now, the challenges alluded to, I just want to find out to what an extent is the Defense Force, CSIR collaborating with AMSCO, tapping into that capability to ensure that suitable boots are procured and manufactured specifically to tick all the box in terms of specification for the boots that will be suitable for different terrains that the Defense Force operates in. Second question is around the material. I understand the movement from the old uniform to the new uniform, and the project that they are undertaking with CSIR in terms of development of that new uniform. But the main question is, who's the main manufacturer of the fabric? Because the problem we will have with the old uniform is that the manufacturer sits somewhere in China. And what measures and control are you going to employ on this fabric that you are referring to, so that it does not get accessed by anyone else except yourself? And what is the control measures that you have put in place to ensure that we don't find ourselves in a situation that we find ourselves with the old uniform? Lastly is the issue of shaded flag versus the colored flag that we know. If they can clarify us as well on that one. I now, Chair, move to the other presentation. Maybe it's safe to start by indicating that November last year, we received a presentation around this fleet management, fleet policy, fleet management, maintenance, and phasing out of old D vehicles, which is a problem because when you go to most of the bases, they tend to scrapyard as opposed to military bases, attracting criminals who are coming in to steal some of the parts in those vehicles that are in their scrapyards. One of the things that was raised sharply in that meeting in November was the fleet management policy, which is under review. Can they share with us the progress in terms of the review of that policy? Because we focused our interest on that because there are challenges on the ground with regards to serviceability, servicing vehicles that are out of motor plans, challenges in terms of the quotation for replacement of, for an example, a light bulb or brick pads, where the process of procurement becomes overwhelmed as a result of not getting necessary responses. And when you go to original equipment manufacturers, they don't have time to fill your SBD forms and comply with your legislation. Therefore, you find yourself in a catch-22 kind of a situation. And the intention of reviewing of the policy is to close the gap and address all those challenges around that. And we do not get a clear indication in terms of that. When it comes to rations, whether be it patrol ration, wet and dry rations, the department is not your department is not doing justice. When was the last time you were in contracts? If you can share that with us. The last time you had valid contracts, when did they expire? Between that time and now, what has been done? Because that's where the problem is. If you've got good contract managers, ordinarily they will know that we are in this contract of ration. It is going to expire in, for an example, in September. We know the process of procurement will take 90 days. Therefore, you don't wait until the last day. You start 90 days before it expires, or even before, 120 days before it expires. You go out so that if you've got challenges, you've got enough time to address those challenges and ensure that you don't find yourself outside the contract and attracting unnecessary audit queries that you might have prevented when you have good contract managers and your procurement system are effective and efficient. Because relying on a month-to-month basis, it opens yourself up to even corruption.
Have we lost Thabo?
Yes, I can't hear him anymore.
Can't hear him anymore. Okay. No, he's still online, and I can see he's still talking. Thabo, can you? I don't know what's the problem, but we can't see you on the There is Thabo. Thabo, we can't hear you anymore. Can I skip you? Let me take Mafanya. Your last word was corruption and you disappeared. You'll come back, I will still allow you. Honorable Mafanya.
Thank you very much, Chair, and the entire leadership, colleagues. I would like to echo the same sentiments exactly as Mr. Mare and register the same sentiment with Mr. Mutle. All that I'm asking is that the department must consider insourcing as well as providing military veterans in terms of all this clothes that they say they are oversized and others are too small, including establishing that kind of factory. That's all. It just has to register the same sentiments as both my colleagues have said. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. All right. I will still accept Thabo back. Mr. Mare, can I give you just 2 minutes now
Yes.
to add the thing?
Okay. Thank you, Chair. There's just two things that I've forgotten. The one thing is on that slide 14, I just wanted to get clarity also on there with regards to that 3 million rand or 3 billion rand for 55,000 soldiers. That means 55,000 per soldier. Is that correct? Surely that cannot be 2 sets of clothes or 3 sets of clothes, 2 sets of boots. That sounds out of the ordinary. And that's really the price and the comparable price of uniforms and how to issue a soldier. Just give clarity on that, because that will put us into a total new light. Then I also just wanted to know whether that service level agreement with Petro SA, what will that entail? Will that provide for us as being a wholesaler, or what will that be? Then secondly, I also just wanted to find out something that you have raised initially, Chair, and what we have experienced with individual base commanders. And also, you will recall when we visited the Lebombo border post, that OC has raised with us that the procurement levels for OCs are so low that he can't even procure a tire replacement for one of his vehicle packs when it's an emergency. So how far are we to get to a more realistic level? Because 5,000, for instance, in a couple of years ago, could have bought a number of tires. Now you can't even buy one. So clearly, that levels of procurement authorization, those mandates, must be increased with the at least the defense index, not CPI, but the defense index of between 12 and 15%. Is that being considered, and to what extent can we play a role as a committee in interacting with National Treasury to address that? Chairperson, then just the last one on that National Treasury, that NT RT 57 contract. Is National Treasury at fault, or who are at fault in terms of this not being completed? So we just wanted to know, I want to know whether it is on the defense side or on National Treasury side, and what, in your opinion, are the stumbling blocks for that? Chairperson, thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much. I need a bottle of whiskey for that generosity.
Chairperson, I mean, for me, it cannot be green label or blue label, eh? I'm just an ordinary MP,
Yes, we discussed the price. Honorable Chabo Moshe?
No, yeah, thanks, Chair. Sorry on the connectivity challenges. I'll
Yes,
just pick up where.
You left when you're talking about corruption. We can take it from there. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I was just saying that their inability to manage contract and ensure that when contracts comes to an end, they proactively ensure that there is no gap. It opens up for possible corruptions, for them to rely on month-to-month basis, where procurement processes are, for an example, circumvent and rely on deviation, so forth and so on. What is the main cause of these challenges that they are faced with? I know for a fact that they have presented that they have finalized specs, so forth and so on. They will be going out on tender for this contract, but it's not for the first time that you invite suppliers for this kind of contract. Why must it take you so long to finalize specification on something that you have been doing over the years since the existence of the South African National Defence Force? You always had suppliers for rations. You always had suppliers for essential services. Therefore, if you improve, it will not be a total overhaul on specs. It will be an improvement on those specifications that you have all over the years you have been working on. So what justifies these long delays and long protracted decision making in terms of finalizing this kind of contract? Or it's either there's comfortability with the status quo in the manner that things are being run within the Defence Force, and a determination needs to be made that no, we don't need these contracts. We are comfortable with how we do things, and then you legalize. You see how you legalize how you do things, so that you don't find yourself contravening some of the prescripts of the law and finding yourself with irregularities in terms of the systems that are put in place. On the last one, Chair, it's on fuel. On fuel, or maybe also on patrol ration pack. Going out and inviting suppliers for a contract of 18 months, whilst it takes you more than 18 months to finalize your processes. Does it make any logical sense on your side, C-Log? Because if for an example, you appoint contractors for 18 months, it means that within 12 months, you must start the process again. And you know that your system are not efficient. You are going to take another 3 years for you to get into this contract. So what is the logic behind that? As I move to the last one on fuel, I want to draw their attention to the previous presentation they made to this committee, where they indicated that their movement from their own contract to SAF will yield some positive results, and there are some advantages that have been noted. One of them is the cooperation in renewable energy production, development, and supply to end users as off-grid solution to DOD and its associates. To what an extent, since we have been in collaboration or cooperation with SAF, have you started tapping into this advantage insofar as renewable energy production is concerned for the Defence Force? Because it can't continue to be correct in the current conjuncture that we find ourselves, that when even the military bases are load shaded, which are national key points. This is an important aspect that needs to be undertaken, and if we can get a briefing as to what is happening with regard to that. You also made mention of skill development and secondment of South African National Defence Force members to work with strategic facilities as part of the SANDF HR rejuvenation strategy and HR exit mechanism. To what an extent, what are the developments with regard to that advantage that you have presented to us? You have mentioned the challenges with regard to stock storages, so forth and so on. But last important point that was presented to us is that the DOD will be purchasing cheaper fuel and creating savings that can be utilized at other operational areas. Is that a fact? Is that a reality? What are those savings that you are making? If not, what are the reasons advanced for you not getting this benefit that you have assured us and the public that you moving from the contracts that you had to this Central Energy Fund agreement? You will be seeing some savings in terms of few cents or rands per liter, so forth and so on. But the reality of the matter, Chair, that is evident is that one, South African Air Force is complaining that they are not getting the necessary sufficient supply. There's a shortage of fuel for them to fly. You go to the army bases, there's a shortage of supply for fuel, diesel in several areas. So I'm just being general. If they want us to be specific, we can then indicate where we went, where they had challenges. So how are they addressing those fundamental challenges? Because one of the responsibility of the LOC division is to support these services so that they are able to execute their mandate. But if they are unable to do so, it is tantamount to sabotaging these services for them to fail in their responsibilities that they must execute. And all this, the fingers will be pointing at Chief LOC if these services are not, he is unable to support these services efficiently and effectively. So in a meeting that we had with the Chief Joint Ops, he made mentions of the frustrations that he has with the procurement centers. When they send requirements to your procurement centers, Chief LOC, your procurement centers take forever. They don't have a sense of agency for them to assist this those end users who forward requirements to them with the necessary speed that they need to do so. And that frustrates not only CJ Ops and other services probably. What is it that you are doing, putting in place to ensure that at least when requests are put in place, there's a time frame that you put for your services, for your centers to react positively to those requests and ensure that they conclude on them timeously, so that services at the end do not suffer and throw their hands in the air because they can't do anything and they point fingers at you. Remember, failures of these centers are your failure as a Chief LOC. Therefore, I don't think you would want a situation where these centers' failures become your failures. What is it that you are doing to ensure that you address all these challenges that we have picked up and ensure that you support these services as and when they make a request, both in terms of supply of fuel, in terms of rations, in terms of other services that you need to support them with. As I conclude, Chair, I'll pause there and await the responses. Thank you very much.
All right. Pause there and await the responses. All right. Let's then pause this session on questions, and then ask the acting CFO and Chief Log to supply us with the answers. The colleagues will have the opportunity to make follow-up should the need arise, as Honorable Tabo has just indicated. All right, over to you, Chief Log. Start with you, acting CFO.
Good morning again, Chair. I think we will rather start with C-Log. The questions relating to logistics are much more than the questions relating to the uniform. So maybe let's start with logistics first and procurement, and then we'll come to General Jacobo. Thank you, sir.
Okay, that's fine. Chief Log.
Thank you, Chairperson, members of the Portfolio Committee on Defense. I will attempt to firstly to try and give clarity with regard to the contract management. And
I can see you are not setting your video on. Is it because of you are trying to protect the stability of the system? Or what? Please.
That is correct, Chairperson.
Correct. Okay. Go ahead.
I would say that our contract management it's managed in two folds. One with AMSCO, which is normally the category 1, with the products such as ammunition, weapons, and vehicles. And then with category 2, it is managed through the Directorate Procurement Management, which is DPM. That is all procurement related items. I think then the issue of the procurement delegations. I would say that one, firstly, to explain that each and every service has a procurement unit with a 1 million delegations. And then the Log Division has 2 main procurement centers, that CPSC situated in Pretoria and SPSC, which is situated in, hello? Sorry, Chairperson, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Oh, thank you, sir. And it's situated in Simonstown, and they have 5 million delegations. And those are the 2 procurement units with the highest delegation currently. And the one in Simonstown covers the coastal, which covers up to the Eastern Cape Umtata, up to KZN units. They all supported by that particular unit. And the Pretoria, it covers the inland.
So General, that is for every transaction above the 5 million rand threshold.
That is correct, Chairperson.
Thank you.
And this addresses some of the challenges that we have raised with some of the units being too far to be assisted with regard to the procurement. And that also adds to some of our procurement challenges. Now, with regards, if I may move and to the question of the specs with regard to the D vehicles.
So General, I can see what you are trying to say. You are saying, well, I'm responsible for the 5 million rand, anything above 5 million rand, but anything up to 1 million rand rest with the, well, you're saying from 1 million rand and above, rest with the arms of services. Is that what you're saying?
That is correct. I was going to come back to it, Chairperson, but probably I will address it now. That is the challenge currently that we're facing. We have been investigating in terms of assisting. Either we increase the service and divisions delegation, probably more than 1 million. However, most of the headquarters are also situated here in Pretoria, which is inland. Maybe that may not address the challenge. So we are also investigating to establish 2 more procurement units that can have the same as 5 million delegation, coastal and inland, bringing them closer to the units. And that is one of the possible solutions that we're looking at. And I must say that the 2 main procurement units have been overloaded because they have to attend all these units, the one that is coastal as well as inland. And obviously, when they are overloaded, there will be a lot of challenges, as we have found out during some of our investigations that we've done. But those are technical issues that we're addressing within the LOC division. The procurement of vehicles. One, maybe I should say that the RT57 contract is a National Treasury contract, with the DOD is part of the participant with all the other government departments. So the contract has expired from the National Treasury, which affects all the government departments, not only the DOD. It was extended until June, and currently it's running on month to month. And unfortunately, it is also beyond our control. With regard to the D vehicle, the specs, yes, we are procuring or receiving the requirements to procure some of the support vehicles, as well as the support to ops, which we normally call them core vehicles, such as ambulances or military police vehicles. And then there are also VIP vehicles. So all these requirements from the service and division, we receive it as per establishment tables that have been complied by the services. And there is a replacement plan, which is based on the mileage of the vehicles, and it will also be based on the damages of the vehicles. And then they will only be replaced as such, per se. And I can also confirm, once I'm turning to that, that we have not finalized the whole fleet management policy. However, we have addressed the master plan, the vehicle master plan, as well as we have the maintenance plan with regard to the management of the vehicles. Now, with regard to the issue of the replacement probably of bulbs within the vehicles, I think that is happening within the LWTs, that is our workshops in the units. Within those workshops, there should have been spares that have been procured and are kept as spares, not buy on need, but already somebody that is managing those spares and can be able to replace within the stock level that is supposed to be there. And they're supposed to take, at least they are responsible for the first line maintenance. And that first line equipment is supposed to be provided there. But I think these are the issues, technical issues or operational issues that we need to follow in terms of exactly probably what is happening in the units. Are they doing it according to the plan or according to the policy side? With regard to the fuel, the current challenges, one, we opted for a central energy fund through a memorandum of cooperation, the agreement that we had, and with our sister organization. And at the first negotiations, we have discussed the issues and the issue of prices before we then developed our concept, and then it was presented for the approval. But actually, when we actually went now to draft the commercial contracts, That's where we experience challenges with regard to the pricing itself. As remember, one of our issue is national security. And one of the reasons that we opted for the Central Energy Fund was to ensure that we will be able to ensure if well, so that our training can continue, we can be able to support operations. And also correctly so, we'll be able to ensure that we have guarantee, affordability in terms of price, as well as safety. And those were the principles that driven us into this agreement, basically. And however, when we went to the commercial contract and we were negotiating that, there were some changes where we realized that in terms of what they are offering us, it will not be sustainable for the DOD. Initially, there were other additions that they were going to service us, and all those advantages that were presented are still intact, and they are still to give it to us. The only issue that we had a challenge was the price, because we had to ensure that at least we are saving, and that is where we had a problem with regard to that. And I think one of the members will probably elaborate with regard to the pricing, what exactly was the challenge with regard to the pricing, because that is where we had a disagreement with the pricing at the last, and that is a challenge with us. So with regard to the bulk storage with strategic units such as FOS, currently it was part of our agreement because Petro SA was to supply us with those bulk storages into our strategic unit, as well as to supply us with that fuel into our operational strategic points that we have identified. And I must say that we have already done the feasibility studies in terms of where those will be. So all those plans were done and they were completed. As soon as, if we can only address the issue of pricing, then the plans can be able to be effected. Yes, so we have received the reports of a shortage of fuel in some of the services divisions. However, we're waiting for the formal reports that they can be able to send us those reports so that we can be able to engage Petro SA with regard to what is the problem. Well, seemingly it seems that the delivery is the challenge, but we need to receive from the services the government orders that have not been delivered, so that and then we can be able to engage and address it. I think we can address this at the operational level, sir. With regard to the contracts, yes, sir, it's almost more than 2 years now with regard to the contracts that have been renewed, not renewed, that is since they have expired. And I think with regard to this, I, as well as the DOD, we have to take ownership in terms of failing to ensure that the contracts are in place. Because when I look at this, I see this as internal issues, internal challenges, technical challenges, issues of board not being sitting, issues of chairperson that have not been appointed, and probably the changing of chairpersons as well. That had an impact in the whole process, and other technical issues that were there. I will not say that there was any external influence, but it is internal, and we take ownership in terms of the delays that have happened. And we can only promise that we are going to speed up, because the problem that we had, I think, also was the communication internally between the divisions as well as the chairperson. But we have addressed this issue already. We've written letters, we've discussed with the chairpersons, the agency of this matter, and they've promised that they will assist us in addressing this issue to ensure that we have contracts in place. The issue with regard to the procurement, so it is true that most of the procurement processes are too long, and sometimes they do not support the operations currently. We have been busy with the workshops currently, to try and find solutions, and also the work sessions that we had. And we have addressed some of the internal issues that impact on procurement processes itself. But also we look at that we may have a window of opportunity in terms of the National Treasury note number 3, which relates to procurement by other means. So we will finally finalize that, also develop the policy so as to ensure that we addressed the procurement that will be compatible to support the operations. And we are working together with also the GRC with regard to that. So we probably aim before the end of June, we can be able to finalize probably the first draft towards that. And we think also the new procurement bill will probably also assist us. We saw that there's also a window of opportunity there that will address some of the procurement challenges that will open up to us as well, Chairperson. I think I've tried to cover. I'm not sure if I've missed a question, but you will guide me, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Acting CFO.
Okay, I think from the procurement side, we have addressed all the issues that has been raised. We'll just get General Jacobu and General Stratford to deal with the issues around the uniform, if that is okay with you, Chair. Thank you, sir.
Right. General Jacobu.
Thank you, Chair. I will start by saying thank you to the comments and questions by the honorable members of the committee. My first response will be to the Honorable Mare. We fully agree that we need to prioritize our frontline troops, and that is our honest belief as the Army. Sometimes we find ourselves caught up with a situation where the funds allocated to us are predominantly on personnel, and there's very little on operating budget. We were actually lucky to get some money in October last year through the DP bag, and in the same spirit of priorities, that's why we put that 122 million on this project of the new uniform. I think the acting CFO will assist me to articulate this. We are raising this issue of 3.3 billion for the whole SANDF, that it should be borne in mind that it's money that is not there in terms of the operating funds. Then coming to the issue of the boats that are being utilized by troops in operations and here at home. This is the reason General Stratford was showing the two types of boats that we are investigating. It is to correct these deficiencies that we experienced with the boots of this uniform that I'm wearing. I was fortunate to be issued by the CSIR, the new boot that we are investigating to wait in the DRC. I can safely say that in my view, it addresses the problems that we had with the old boat, if I may call it. But we have 1 year in Mozambique, in DRC, here at home along the border, and here in the areas where we work to get the outcome of the investigation from the wearers of the uniform. Then we will conclude if we have hit the note this time with the two types of boots that we're investigating. About the gear for our paratroopers, yes, Honorable Mare, we have procured boots for our paratroopers. They don't have a problem. Their boots have never been a problem. The problem was a normal infantry boot, which we are trying to replace. And in our investigation on the new uniform, they are included in terms of their jump uniform. The uniform that we are investigating has catered them, including the special forces, in terms of uniform only. But when it comes to the boots and other special equipment that the special forces are using, they use their research and development and their own specialized and exclusive procurement processes to investigate and acquire equipment that they use. So what we'll share with them, like we are sharing with other services and divisions, is the uniform and the normal boots. But their specialized boots, I cannot answer on behalf of them. They deal with those projects as rather confidential projects that they deal with. I want to come back to this point of funding. If you listen to the presenter, Major General Stratford, he stressed this issue of the funding. It is not necessarily the issue of priorities. It is the issue of what we get as operating funds is really difficult to even put fuel in vehicles to go forward. So to buy a uniform, which is a requirement for the frontline troops, is really something that we are trying to cry for. Chair, I got a card from my connection, and when Honorable Montle was asking questions, I only captured the issue of the control of the new uniform and the issue of the flag. If there's something that I've missed that he said before that, I believe Judge Stratford will cover me on that end. About the control of the new textile as compared to the one that I'm wearing now. It is the problem that we identified with this old uniform, if I may call it. And we make sure that we put it in front with CSIR and those who will manufacture the uniform after it has passed the testing stage, that it must be controlled strictly. For example, I will allow General Stratford to come into details as he's dealing with the matter. There is part of the cloth that we are using in the new uniform that we had to get somewhere. And it was made clear that going forward, it will be manufactured here at home and controlled as such. About the flag, in terms of a faded flag and our normal colors in our flag, we addressed that as soon as it was raised. We are going to utilize our national flag with its colors as it is. We have put this up for the Military Command Council to approve. We are going to present the dress regulations for the new uniform. In that, we are saying we will always use our national flag as it is. Yet, we have a humble request when we deal with kinetic operations where our troops are going to be involved in firefights. Camouflage and concealment is the basics in such operations. As a result, which is a common practice around the world, many of the professional defense forces, they fade their uniform, their flags. Others, they remove the flags when they are involved in such operations. Depending on the approval by the MCC and above, we will be able to use our uniform here, our flags here at home and in the mission areas. Only when troops move out to these kinetic operations will they use the faded flag if it's approved. If it's not approved, we will have to remove it so that we don't compromise them in operations. Lastly, with the comments by Honorable Mafanya, in terms of insourcing, I think General Stratford can touch on that. We are making means to internalize what he calls cut, make and train, where we get the kilometers of textile and then we cut it to make our own uniforms to suit our needs. So we have a project of that nature as the Army so that we can save costs, not to send this to the normal outsourcing processes, and not only for saving costs, also to protect the uniform. I will request General Stratford to come in if I have missed something, if it is fine with you, Chair.
Thank you very much. General Stratford. Is there anything that you think was not dealt with by the responses? All right, colleagues, thank you very much. And the public is concerned about the number of people who are using, who are wearing the military camouflage. As you know that, section 104, subsection 5 and 6 of the Defense Act prohibits unauthorized persons from, possessing or wearing prescribed uniforms, distinctive marks or crest, or performs any prohibited act while wearing such uniform, or with such uniform, distinctions, marks, or crest, it prohibits unauthorized persons from possessing or wearing prescribed uniforms, distinctive marks, or crest, or perform any prohibited act while wearing such uniforms, distinctive marks, or crest. And that if they are found guilty of that offense, they will be liable on conviction to a fine or imprisonment for a period of 5 years. Unfortunately, this provision of the Act has not been enforced because if you look at the proliferation, the increasing number of civilians found wearing military uniforms, it's clear that there is lack of enforcement of this provision. And I'm saying this, that even as we migrate from the old uniform to the new uniform, unless we address this concern, public concern, even the uniform now, the new uniform, will land in wrong hands and end up being used or worn by civilians who are not prescribed to wear it. So it's our concern as a portfolio committee, and is a concern of the public. And when people are in those uniforms, some are, have other intentions. At night, they conduct criminal activities, and because they've impersonated themselves as soldiers. And when people look at that, they welcome them into their homes, or they stop at night thinking that those people are legitimate and they're authorized to be on the road. They're authorized to come into their premises, when in actual fact, they have other intentions. And the intention is to commit crime. So until we clamp down on people wearing uniforms, and people will, the confidence in the military amongst our people will diminish. I'm saying that thing, affects negatively the image of the defense force. So we've got to clamp down on this thing. And there was a shop owner was arrested, remember, in 2020, November, who was actually selling a military uniform and was released pending the investigation. And I don't know what has become of that case, because that should have been one of a classical example where the law enforcement or the state, clamps down on people who use, who sell or abuse what you call military camouflage. So I think we've got to attend to that. Yes, we are hopeful that as we transit, but in the minds of the people, they will still think that we are using the old uniform. In fact, it's going to take a very long time for people to think you have migrated to the new uniform. So that the current uniform must still be protected, and as it were. And maybe for a period of, there's got to be a number of years, and only then you remove the protection. After at the expiry of that period of years, you remove the protection. I don't know how we are going to do it, but I'm just thinking of the image of the Defense Force, and when their uniform is abused. And then secondly is when people who are on this uniform, but they mix it with either clothing items. Either you wear it on full or you don't wear it at all. Again, it's the image of the Defense Force that we are trying to protect. And we don't want people to see people in uniform doing things that are not related to their work, or in parties with a uniform like we see with other uniforms, not that of the Defense Force, but to say, but is this a state representative who is in this uniform and conducting himself or herself like this in public? Certainly, I've not seen it with the Defense Force, and but we've got to clamp on it. People must know that our tolerance to it is zero. So I move away from that, and then I come to the contract with the Petro SA stroke CEF. This contract has long been in the making. You were here in November last year, and you said you are negotiating the contract. It's 6-7 months later. In fact, it's 7 months later. You still have not concluded on that contract. You are just saying now that it's reaching the final stage, so we are concerned that if you were addressing the emergency, that the concern that number one, you were charged 150 to 300 rand above the pump price, and two, your fuel equipment was deteriorating because the contract we had with the suppliers did not have the maintenance contract. We had actually hoped that this new contract, as part of it, will have maintenance contracts of those fuel equipment, but it's now 6 months later. It's not been signed. Again, I confirm what Honorable Montler said earlier on, that there doesn't seem to be any sense of urgency. Please, can you step up and on that one, because unless we have it right, we will not get the benefit of the transition that you have spoken about, that is as it were. So and then the last point, I had the acting CFO saying that there's procurement officer at a central level, they are moving towards that. But my feeling, a very strong feeling, but I leave it to the acting CFO and the department, is that they've got to separate a procurement officer who will be dealing with procurement from demand to procurement, and disposal of assets, if that will be part of that person's job description. Separate that person from someone who will be managing contract, a lawyer, but somebody who has got the understanding of the law, who you run to draft contracts, to standardize contracts, and to ensure that the department is not taken for a ride, and to monitor the performance of the contracts, including ensuring that the pricing is right, and people are acting within the law who are in the procurement space, and also ensuring that when the contract is about to expire, is able to bring that to the attention of the users so that they start rolling out new contracts, and not end up with a situation where we don't have contracts and you don't have a contract in place, and you have to go on month to month, and sometimes for a very long, protracted period. So that person must then build that institutional memory within the institution, and must not be affected by the rotation that happens within the Defense Force in the brown uniform, and the promotion, because that has a disruptive effect in the whole supply chain process. But the CFO is here to make that a presentation to us. So I'm of the very strong view that all the issues the AG has raised have something to do with how you have been managing contracts, and the relationship between the contract manager and the procurement officer. And you know, that if you build that as an institutional memory, that person would also assist in terms of training people as and when they come in, when others have moved out due to rotation or promotion. So unless you do that, and the independent of procurement officer, and who may have a lot on his plate, on his or her plate, and unless you do that, I don't see you really coming out of the situation that has attracted so many negative audit findings within the department. I want to leave it at that for now, and then unless there's one or two, three, I can see iPhone RAMs. I don't know who's RAMs MRM.
Honorable Chair, it's me, Motapo.
Oh yes, Motapo, and there's Petle, there's Tabo, and there's Mare. Okay, because I have follow-ups, I'm worried about the next presentation, but again, it's all about contract management. I love the discussion. Let me take Motapo, Petle, Mare, and then Tabo.
My apologies, sir.
Okay.
Yes, good day to all of you, Chair and colleagues. My apologies, Chair, as I couldn't start the meeting with yourselves due to technical glitches, but I would like to thank Honorable Petle for her assistance. And Honorable Chairperson, you took most of the issues which I was supposed to raise, but let me align myself with yourself and Honorable Thabo Mutle on the issue of control measures in relation to the new proposed uniform. It's true that there are a lot of people nowadays who are impersonating our pride, which is the South African National Defence Force. And then my proposal, because you dwelt much on this, Chairperson, to cut matters short, is that let the legal division of SNDF do the necessary processes in order to protect this. I don't know whether it will be a trademark of some kind or so, but they know as the legal division what is supposed to be done in this regard. And then secondly, Chairperson, you raised, yourself and Honorable Mutle raised issue of this procurement, which is always taking such a very long time. this is a cause for concern also to me. I think also in this regard, the legal division, which has to deal with contract management, and also the acting CFO's office has to focus much on this issue of procurement, as it is compromising the operations of the Defence Force. Most issues, Chairperson, you have already touched on. I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Honorable Petle, and then Mare, and then Mutle.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and good day to all honorables present in this platform. Mine is just a smaller comment, Chair, in regards to what one has observed, that for some time, there has been programs that are taken, or decisions that were taken in terms of implementation. It becomes difficult. Perhaps the department can advise us to how best are they going to attach timelines that goes with the implementation of the projected plan, so that they are able to can make accountability as and when they're failing. Because there may be hindrances in between, but we cannot have a lifetime programs that are not implemented from time to time. That creates a serious problem for the department and the portfolio committee to can monitor the process in regards to the job to be done. The second element that I'm just following up on what you said in your summary together with Honorable Mtapo around the issue of uniform. This is a serious cause for concern. But I think what you raised in terms of the legalities, we need to join the two departments, that is DTIC, that is working or looking after the economic aspect in terms of retail assets, because a number of retailers, they are there selling all this, and this goes to, you see sometimes if the uniform is worn by private securities, this becomes more dangerous for this country if that is just left behind. But the DTIC, raising from what earlier you said, there was a retailer that was arrested and the matter just vanished. It's a cause for concern. If the two departments at legal level can create a marriage of discussion, how best we're going to cure this particular element, because it gives birth to a high level of crime around the country itself. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mare.
So, thank you, Chair. There's just two questions of mine that I didn't hear properly, or it was not answered at all. The first one was the amount, that 3 billion rand for 55,000 soldiers in terms of uniforms and boots. Now, as I've said, that amounts to 55,000 per person. Now, if you look and see 3 or 4 sets of camouflage clothes or uniform, 2 sets of boots, that is impossible that it can cost 55,000 per person. So something is wrong, that doesn't add up, and I feel I cannot justify that to National Treasury with the information that I've got.
We'll have them to
and the other one was with regards to the vehicles, the D vehicles, that I have not picked up the proper answer. That National Treasury contract, does that prescribe what type of vehicles you must buy, or whether we have got, and the Defence Force has got a own decision to say, no, we want to go cheaper, more efficient, so that we can have money for other purposes, for instance, prime mission equipment. 2 very important questions. Thank you.
Okay, so the second question is on the transversal contract. It's fine. Let's move to Thabo Mutle.
No, thanks, Chair. I asked the cooperation with AMSCO under ProTechnique economics capability. It was not responded to. Second one, the issue of memorandum of understanding or agreement with SEF. One of their advantages, them being skill development. Secondly, the expertise on renewable energy to assist the Defence Force, not responded to. The last one, Chair, I think let me put it as a proposal that when they come to present to us on this matter, maybe in the next quarter, we need to also ensure that either the SecDef or the Chief Defense Material, who's the chair of the board, becomes present, because there must be an alignment from the services to the procurement centers, and anything above 5 million, which then requires the responsibility of that board to come and account on some of the efficiencies and challenges that they are imposing on the Defence Force. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, so colleagues, is these issues that remain outstanding, I now afford the opportunity to the department.
Thank you, sir. If I can quickly respond on the part of the uniforms.
Yes, General.
Thank you, sir. General Stratford was attempting to come in, but he was late. He's ready to come in. Before I do that, I would like to apologize by omitting to answer the part of the pricing of the uniform to Honorable MRA. We did staff tests for the SA Army and other services and divisions. And the calculations are not based on individual issue. We have what we call a scale of issues. When we issue you with a set of uniform, we expect you to come back when it is worn out to get other pairs of uniform. So we don't buy according to the number of people. We must have stores to issue to replace. But General Stratford will come in details about that. Chair, I cannot even comment on the issue of the embarrassment that we go through when our uniform is appearing everywhere in the civilian sector in wrong places. And correctly, we can not only look at protecting the new uniform. The uniform I'm wearing still carries our identity. The points are taken from all honorable members that commented on the same. Coming to the issue of General Stratford, I think he can come in to clarify other issues that I might have left out. Please, Sean.
Thank you, Deputy. Am I audible now, Chair?
Yes, General.
Okay, 100%. Thank you, sir. I had lost a bit of the signal there. Chair, if I can respond to 3 of the questions. There was a question relating to the development of our garments. The comment was made proudly South Africa. What I can respond on this one is that CSR is currently importing from Pakistan. There was a comment made importing from China, so I just want to rectify that. What I can also add is that there's about 2,000 meters of fabric that's been woven by a company called the Gama. It's a local company. The boots as well, also being produced by a local company, Dick Whittington. And the waxies has been done by Tarzan Shoes, all local companies, so investing and developing our own capability. What I can also add there is that the dyeing is also being done local. So eventually, I believe when we go into the procurement full scale, we would have already developed the capacity within South Africa that we don't have to look external to the Pakistans, to the Chinas, or whoever. There was also a second question, I wrote it down here, to what extent is the Defence Force CSR liaising with Arms Corps? Again, if I can just refer to the new camouflage. The intention is to complete the wearer trials, and then we're going to hand over the new uniform to CLOG. And I believe CLOG will then work with Arms Corps, the normal procurement processes, once we've completed with the research and development of the new camouflage. Obviously, with regards to the new service dress, we're already liaising and we have agreements with Arms Corps. Effectively, Arms Corps is our agent and they're acting on our behalf as the middleman. There was a question on the main manufacturer. I think I've answered that to say that the CSR is working with Pakistan, getting the necessary cloth. And I also indicated that the Gama is now in the process of weaving some of the textiles. The Honorable Mr. Murray wanted a comparison between the 3 billion versus the 55,000 soldiers that we want to go and clothe. My answer there would be that we need to purchase for each individual the total full spectrum of uniform. And it doesn't just include the uniform as what we know, the shirts, the pants. There's a lot of accessories. There's material for the helmets as an example. One has to purchase big bags. There's H-frames, there's bulletproof vests, and so I can continue. There's boots, there's socks, there's jackets, there's raincoats. We do have a comprehensive spreadsheet. At the end of the day, our responsibility is to ensure that the soldier that we're sending abroad is combat ready. Combat ready in terms of the equipment, that is trained to military specification, and that is ready to execute his task. I heard Mr. Murray saying that it works out to 55,000 Rand per soldier. I would agree with Mr. Murray that is rather exorbitant. What we will definitely do, and we cannot do it now in a very short space, although I do have the matrix visible here, is that we'll just have to go and double check and make sure. I totally concur with Mr. Murray there in terms of 55,000 per person. So we'll relook that one. I believe between the deputy and myself answering these 3 questions, that we have now touched on all the questions that were answered or that were asked. Thank you, Chair. I submit.
Thank you very much. Chief Logistics. Is General Ndlovu?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I must say that I've taken note of the issue with regard to timelines for the implementation of projects, and I think Kenneth Luther, as one of the persons who's working within the RT57 contract, he will just give a brief explanation with regard to that. And then I will also answer with regard to the advantages of the Central Energy Fund that were presented previously.
Thank you, General. Thank you, Chair. Chair, in terms of the RT57 contract, the contract is various suppliers with various role players with a plethora of different vehicles. So should, for example, the requirement come up for a 1-ton bakkie, we would look at the requirement, we would look at what is available on the contract. More specifically, we would look where is the support to the area where the vehicle is needed. So, for example, if there is no Nissan in Timbuktu and only Toyota, it would make obvious sense to then procure a Toyota for that environment. Or if there's only a Mahindra and no of any other manufacturer, then it would be selected that specific vehicle. But the requirement would be for a 1-ton bakkie, and we would within that contract support the requirement for a 1-ton bakkie with no real preference to any specific brand. but just ensuring that there is support within that area of operation of where the vehicle is bought, using again the 1-ton bakkie as an example. I thank you.
Thank you. Chairperson, I must say that some of the advantages that were presented, as I said it before, that have not been implemented yet, because they will be part of the agreement and they will be implemented in phases. So only once we have concluded this contract agreement, and then some of these will then be implemented. And I can only try to say that, Chairperson, that I will try to push aggressively that we finalize some of these contracts as the best that I can as from now. Thank you, sir.
I think they've dealt with all the concerns, the questions, the comments that we all raised. We can only wish them well as they undertake this responsibility. It's been quite a huge concern, because they, as you said, they're at the center of combat readiness of our own soldiers. Food, uniform, the vehicles that they use, food, uniform, the vehicles that they use, as well as the fuel. The fuel includes fuel equipment that has deteriorated somewhat because there was no maintenance plan, and as well as the cost and the time it takes to renew the contract, and all of that have been issues of concern within the department. The department has assured us that they've looked at all these concerns. They've had their own workshop and they've identified the shortcomings, and they are undertaking that they will, with time, they will, address these shortcomings, so that we don't, fall. The department doesn't fall short of, meeting its own operational and administrative requirements. And with that, we wish to thank the two generals and the colonel who made the presentation. I think you have certainly done so well in responding to all our questions. Is this type of engagement that we like, because until we just give a bit of scrutiny and go down to this level, all the issues we pick up as we do visits, which are largely operational because we are at that level, they would be left unattended and basically make people we visit to say, but these guys come to us, they've been coming to us and we are not seeing any improvement. We raise these issues with them, we are candid with them, we raise our concerns. Your soldiers, your people on the ground, that's what they tell us. And when we don't make an impact, they're not going to receive us. We have been received very well on all the missions or visits we have undertaken, thanks to the senior generals that you sent to accompany us. The last visit, we were accompanied by the Deputy Chief Army, General Jacopo. The things you are talking about here, she was part of the visit, and he can confirm that indeed we're bringing up issues that emanated from your own people. And in the previous past, we had chief of the SAF, Chief Kev, CAF Chief Air Force. And in the last visit, General Yokopi had his colleague from the SA Force, the Deputy Chief, also being part of the team. We thank all the support we get when we are on the ground. With that, thank you very much. Let's move now to your presentation. The team that is presented is free to exit at any time if they so wish. I wish to thank them. And General Acting CFO, you have heard it, the tone, the concerns, and your presentation must then take it was in a way to try and reorientate your presentation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chair and members of the Portfolio Committee. Chair, we do note all the questions that have been posed by the honorable members, those that were not responded to, but it's also because it's linked to the presentation that we will present now. And we will try, Ms. Fikile Kumalo will do the presentation, and she will try to incorporate in her presentation in terms of responses to some of the control weaknesses that you may have identified earlier on, and we'll be able to incorporate that into the presentation. And we hope this presentation will be able to address some of the concerns that the members raised throughout the last two presentations to ease themselves in the sense of we are trying as a department to deal with the procurement related issues. Obviously, it's a work in progress. And as you've indicated, you will invite us back again in maybe the next quarter to give an update on the questions that have been raised around the fuel, the uniform, and the rations. And we will do everything we can to try and address those in this presentation. Thank you, Chair. I'll get Ms. Fikile Kumalo to do the presentation on our behalf. Unfortunately, she also has a bit of flu, so her voice may be wavering a bit, but to stabilize after the first 3 or so slides. Thank you so much, Chair.
I can see, Acting CFO, in the few months that you have been in office, we have made you to lose a bit of weight.
No comments, Chair, no comments.
Okay, over to you, Ms. Kumalo.
Chair, I wanted to comment also saying that the acting CFO, he seems to be going into politics next time. You know, he's a good politician.
I'll stick to finance, Honorable Murray.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson and honorable members of the Portfolio Committee on Defense.
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Thank you, Chairperson. I will be presenting the update on the status of the supply chain management issues that have been previously raised and some of the issues that have been discussed in the earlier presentations. The aim of the presentation is to update you on the SCM work session and the means that the department has put in place to improve procurement processes and related irregularities. To start off, Chairperson, I will outline the approach that the department has adopted in terms of the task of the SCM work session. The department went on a fully fledged DOD work session from the 3rd to the 5th of May 2023. And the 5th of May was dedicated to addressing the procurement related matters. And the presentation that was entertained on the day looked at the strategic overview of DOD procurement with an understanding that before we go to the lower level detail of the issues that we deal with, we need to address the issues that must be attended to at a strategic level. And then we also considered the means that we should put in place in order to improve our procurement processes and the related irregularities. The approach that was taken was to have a medium to long-term strategy where we are going to look at procurement digitization. On a short to medium term, we are going to focus on capacity building, and the immediate, which should be the low-hanging fruit, to deal with the issues that are at execution level, the interventions that we are applying at this current moment to address all these issues. The detail of the 2 bullets that I've indicated now is going to be explained in the subsequent slides, but everything else culminates into the recommendations that came from the work session and the work that will have to be done or that is currently being undertaken as a consequence of the work session. On digitization, we are looking at ensuring that the department aligns itself with the G-commerce approach, which is a public sector approach to say we need to be in the digital space. So our procurement is currently manually based. So moving to the digital space is going to assist us in addressing most of the issues that we are grappling with, wherein we are going to minimize the human factor in the procurement process. And
Chairperson, my apologies. Are we still on page 1 of the presentation? Because mine is not moving.
Neither is mine.
Chair, we will try and reload it. Just give us a few seconds, please. Chair, would like to confirm if the slides are now moving.
Yes, it is moving, Acting CFO.
Would you like us to restart or we may proceed from where we were?
No, you proceed. You proceed from where you were.
We're now on slide number 4.
Thank you, Chairperson. The impact of digitization is going to result in effectiveness, efficiency, transparency, and strategic sourcing, where we'll look at various commodities like category management of the different commodities that we have to deal with. It will address even the issues of contract management that I am going to talk to later on. The risk of the approach is that we might have delayed implementation, because if you look at the current APP, it did not cater for this capability. And the ICT prerequisites that we need to be aligned to. So there is a strong intent that we must go digital, but we are thinking ahead that there might be risks that might deter us to have it instantly. That is why it has been placed in the medium to long-term approach. Then from a short to medium term, we are looking at the positioning of the procurement function. We look at the structure and funding of costs. We're looking at a hybrid model, which is going to be composed of military and civilian personnel. Then key also is the issue of training. The department has already entered into a memorandum of agreement with the National School of Government. The first training intervention should have happened last month, but it was postponed to a date to be confirmed due to the fact that the School of Government had combined the Department of Defense with other state entities, and those state entities did not respond. So we have indicated to the School of Government that we have enough numbers that they can do training that is dedicated to defense personnel. Also undertaking in-house training, which is done through the regional workshops that we have started. It is also done through the governance, risk and compliance oversight visits. And we're also looking at capacitating the procurement officials with the necessary tools of trade. The risk that we are looking at here is the fact that procurement is not a mastering in the department, neither is it a sub-mastering. And there is a huge challenge of loss of personnel or expertise due to military rotation and promotion. So when the personnel are rotated or they are moved, then you have new personnel coming in. As they get to understand what is expected of them, then there are movements that are affecting stability and continuity. At execution level, as I indicated earlier on, we have the regional procurement workshops. In the previous 2 months, we have undertaken a workshop in Western Cape and KwaZulu-Natal, where all the procurement OCs and critical staff were brought together, and we engaged on the challenges that they are facing, because at times we might say we are coming with solutions, but not addressing the real challenges that they are facing on the ground. And we are still continuing with the governance, risk, compliance, and accountability oversight, where we directly engage with the units and assist them to have a clear understanding of what is irregular or what results in irregular expenditure, and encouraging them to disclose their irregularities rather than waiting for AG to identify the irregularities. And we're also monitoring and evaluating the levels of compliance in terms of executing the delegation. Also checking now before a delegation is issued to determine whether the unit or the section is capable of executing the delegation. Is the slide moving, Chairperson?
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much. Then here is the fully fledged detail of the recommendations that came out from the work session. On digitization, the department is looking at support from the DOD IT functionaries, that is CMIS and GTO, to, in the meantime, provide an interim solution to address the non-integrated systems and an ultimate comprehensive procurement system. Because if you look at the bill, it also talks of a procurement system. Having such a system will ease the burden of manual contract management, manual processing of bids, and it will assist with the alignment with the National Treasury Contract Management Framework, because we have a framework that is from National Treasury that clearly spells out and addresses some of the challenges that you have mentioned, where you will not only be looking at a contract manager, but you'll also be looking at a contract management system, which will be embedded with a contract management register, and you will have the legal playing a critical role, and you will have the contract owners playing a critical role, as well as the contract administrators. So this is one of the key issues that we are looking at, because we fully understand the burden that you are faced with in terms of poor contract management. It will further assist us in proactively eliminating or minimizing irregularities that we are experiencing from the procurement processes that we follow, to address issues such as obtaining 3 quotations, incorrect preference point calculation, to mention but a few, because you expect that the system will be embedded with a stopgap management system, where if certain information is not available, then you cannot proceed to the next level. The other key consideration is a review of rotation and promotion, wherein the work session looked at the issue of procurement officials and capacity at procurement centers, because the procurement centers are heavily burdened with the requirements of all the clients that they are servicing, as well as the units, because one unit services more than one client. And this is going to be addressed through a hybrid structure, which is composed of a combination of civilians and military personnel, looking at an increased number of civilians as executors to ensure stability and continuity. A key issue that has been discussed before the committee and further in the department is the issue of positioning and the structuring of procurement in the department. We have come to realize that the pronouncements that come from the Treasury regulations, the PFMA, that the procurement function must be in the CFO environment will not be practical for the Department of Defense in terms of how the department is structured, taking into account that you already have a CFO and you already have a chief of logistics. And we are taking the cue from the public procurement bill, wherein the public procurement bill is indicating that the accounting officer must ensure that the department has a procurement unit, but it does not spell out where it should be placed. So this is work that is going to be undertaken to determine how best is procurement going to be positioned in the department, also looking at the adequate structure that will support the function. The issue of professionalization is a matter that is not only affecting the Department of Defense, as we see it finding expression in the procurement bill, but we'll confine ourselves to the challenges that the department is facing, where we are looking at the emphasis on skills development and adequate resourcing. This is already being addressed with the training interventions that I've mentioned earlier on. The work session also deliberated on the development of a DOD procurement strategy, which will place high priority on strategic sourcing and the various procurement policies that we are supposed to have. Because we'll understand that when we are talking strategic sourcing, it will venture into looking at supplier management. It will venture into looking at the various categories that you require to buy. What is the best method of sourcing? How can we leverage on economies of scale? So there's so much that we can benefit on a strategic sourcing approach. Then we're also looking at procurement being a standing agenda item in the strategic management fora. We have an understanding that in the DOD, we are following a model where we have centralized strategic direction and decentralized execution. The centralized strategic direction and decentralized execution implies that at top strategic level, you are going to get strategic direction, monitoring, and evaluation. At the decentralized level, it is the level where there is going to be execution. And execution, we will have a bottom-up approach in terms of reporting. Strategic direction, it will be a top-down approach. And this approach is going to talk directly into the issues of the delegation regime. The department has looked at the current delegation regime and acknowledges that it has taken a long time to review the delegation regime. There is a strong intent to update the delegation regime, bringing it closer to what is in the Defense Review 2015, so that the procurement centers, the units and the sections are empowered, giving them an increased buying power. But we're not only looking at the increased buying power, we are also looking at the fact that the delegation authority is over decentralized and the approval levels are very minimal. So to address that, we are going to look at streamlining the delegations and giving more powers to the chiefs of services and divisions in terms of the procurement financial delegation. And the procurement financial delegation, the increase of the delegation is going to be based on a pre-approval checklist to ensure prudent financial control and capacity, because we don't want to increase the delegation when there isn't adequate capacity, because it will be like we are setting the procurement officials to fail. The next slide presents the conclusions that came out of the DOD work session. Understanding that the DOD is unique in its mandate and operations, we are fully cognizant of the fact that most of the current challenges that we are facing can be resolved within the existing legislative prescripts, enhanced by the pending procurement bill. A cross-functional team composed of representatives from various environments, key will be the services and divisions, technical experts, and planners. We're bringing in technical experts as planners to enhance our capacity in terms of demand management and ensuring that the procurement function is aligned to the department's strategic planning, budgeting, and reporting.
Sorry, there's a mic that is on. If you could attend to your mic, the mic that is on. Thank you. You may continue, Ms. Mthembu.
Thank you, Chairperson. The point that I was making was that we want to ensure that the procurement in the department is aligned to the department strategic planning, budgeting, and reporting instruments. That is why we are bringing in technical experts from the various services and divisions and the planners. We're bringing the financial management division from a budget perspective. Legal division is very key in terms of the interpretation of the prescripts and the issues that we discussed earlier on regarding contract management. Then we'll have defense material and logistic divisions as functional experts. The list that is before us is not limited. For instance, when we're discussing structural issues, the HR environment will have to come in as well. So other experts will be called in as and when the need arises. The cross-functional team will then present their recommendations to the department's decision strategic structure, the Plenary Defense Staff Council, at a date to be determined. Key in the update that they should be giving, or the presentation that they will make, will be the program of action that is going to be taken to address all the issues that we have spoken to. And the continuous monitoring and evaluation of the progress that should be made in terms of addressing the matters or the actions that we have committed to. Any challenges that will arise will be dealt with in terms of what we are addressing at a given time. In closing, one should also underscore that the impact of the upcoming or pending procurement bill implies that we must look at a review in terms of all the legislative prescripts that we are currently having in the department to implement procurement. But we are already thinking ahead, taking the cue from what is in the bill to say whatever we are implementing now should be aligned to what is in the bill, awaiting the enactment of the bill. That brings us to the end of the presentation, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members. We pause for comments and questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Acting CFO, anything to add?
Yes, Chair. I think with the presentations that have now been done by Ms. Kumalo, this also addresses part of the statements made by C-Log with regards to the possible increasing of the different procurement units. And these are some of the discussions that we need to continuously have around managing the procurement management of the Department of Defense. And I think most of your questions from the members dealt with contract management and why we don't have a proper contract management in place to monitor individual contracts. Hence, sometimes we overpay on specific contracts. I think in previous meetings, Honorable Maria has always been saying, why are we paying consultants and suppliers so much more money? It may also be due to this control weakness. So this specific items that we've identified as management of the Department of Defense should be able to address some of our procurement related issues. And the key is also to reduce the amount of irregularities that we incur as a department. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm happy that you are taking all the matters that we raise as the committee to heart, and you are coming back to show that you are acting on some of them. And you see, and I just want to harp on this contract management thing. Acting CFO, you know, one of the reasons why our aircraft are not in the serviceable. Most of our aircrafts are not serviceable. Most of our Navy vessels are not serviceable. And most of our combat fleet is not serviceable. It's largely due to unavailability of spares. And if you consider that the equipment, the prime mission equipment, or the platforms that they are using, the Air Force, the Navy, as well as the Army, date back many years. They are old. Therefore, not a rocket. It doesn't need a rocket scientist to see that unless you have spares in your stores, those spares, those parts will not be readily available because they're not being manufactured. They've moved on with the latest models. And so it will take a bit of time for you to get the spares from the suppliers. That's the situation. And in some cases, we are told that it takes 12 to 36 months before you get parts. And the stock levels are too low, and in some cases, zero in your stores. And again, all owing to unavailability of this nodal point. Someone who would ring the alarms and say, we are lacking on this, we're lacking on that part, and work with the procurement officer to actually deal with these challenges. And so there are instances where the maintenance contracts themselves have not been signed, and for years, the Crippen, for example, it's about a year or two that it was not signed. Maybe there were contractual issues that were actually affecting the two parties from concluding the agreement. But all of that, the question is why you know about it when the contract has already expired, when all of these matters should have been attended ahead of the contract expiring. So I really harp on this contract management, and maybe at some point you must tell us, acting CFO, ubani in the SA Force, in the Air Force, who is this person who is dealing with prior contract management? In the Army, who is this person? In the Navy, who is this person? Can they account for what we see? But we're happy that we'll have a central person, a nodal point, so that we'll not have to drill down to that level. Somebody at a central level who would be looking at all this and taking full accountability. Maybe my last question, whilst I'm still on this point, the chief procurement officer, when we came in 2019, that post was vacant and it was like it would be filled at any minute. And we're exiting now. We're left with a few months before we wish you, we bid you farewell. That post remains unfilled. Do we really need it? You know, and because if you need it, you should have filled it. You should have actually appointed that person long time ago. It's a funded post. Why it has not happened? You know, and when you see all these challenges, it fails me. Okay, that's me talking. Now let me ask the colleagues on the platform to ask their own questions. Thabo, Mare, Thabo and Mare.
All right. So, thank you, Chair. I just want to make sure I'm audible.
Yes, you are, sir.
Okay, no. Thanks, Chair. Let me take this opportunity to appreciate the presentation and the recommendation alluded to in the presentation. I think for me, I think the work session has come up with progressive resolutions. The problem that I have is the implementation that must precede this presentation. Because indeed, if they implement what is being presented, I think some of the questions that we raised in our engagement with the CLOG will be addressed. But most importantly, it's to have a procurement division that will be able to effectively deal with issues of procurement, nothing else, and bridge the gap between what the CLOG is responsible for and what the board under the SecDef is responsible for. Because there are gaps there which result in mostly these delays that ultimately affects the support that must be given to operations and services. So what is their implementation plan? That is what I'm keen to know. From here on, what is their plan in terms of ensuring that they establish what they are speaking about, and what are the time frames to see it hitting the ground running? So I think if that can be done, some of the questions that we have raised previously will then be addressed. If there's a concerted and focused efforts to ensure that there's a capability built on capability built procurement division that will be able to deal with all these challenges that we have raised around the procurement issues. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mare.
Thank you very much, Chair. We'll just get back to, can you still see me, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. I want to ask a couple of questions just to get clarity. First of all, it seems like there's been a number of things being considered to be implemented once it has been approved. Now, I don't know when they will start implementing this and when they commit themselves that we will see improvements and changes. Because if one look at all the concerns and the qualifications and the questions raised by the Auditor General, I would very much like to, and I don't want to list all the queries by the Auditor General. We have them, and it should be available to the department. How will all these make sure that we do not have all those queries and concerns? I also want to ask whether the new public procurement bill that was gazetted in last month in May, which can have far-reaching implications on procurement in any government departments, so much more in defense, whether that has been consulted and that has been brought in already, because there's no purpose in designing and developing a procurement system not considering the impact of such a bill if it will be approved by Parliament and when, because then you have to start right from the beginning. So that can have devastating effects, and obviously we want to limit the Auditor General queries and qualifications and findings, and we obviously must try to instill more confidence at National Treasury on how we can manage our funds, because if not, my theory is they will not give us more money. I also want to find out when staff is appointed in the procurement, specifically the procurement division. Are there not qualifications, academic experience, etc., minimum qualifications so that they can do the work? Because according to this presentation, it seems like, the School of Governance and other tools of trade, and there's a lot of things that is planned to do, but how are people being appointed up to now? Is there not minimum qualifications? For instance, you have to have a postgraduate qualification in procurement management or finance management, etc. That is a bit of a bothering me. All these suggestions and considerations that have been given to us, how will that impact on the mandates given to OCs? I know that the previous presentations indicated that a possible increased mandate to officer commanding in the Defence Force, because as far as we know, it is very, very low at about 5,000 Rand. So how will that impact on that? Because, Chairperson, you are quite right in terms of what we have experienced at different units and visits to the border, where such a kind of irrational and it's not logical why so small and low mandate levels still exist. I mean, that is a hindering and not an assistance for us to move forward. Then I also want to ask, in that same light, maybe, whether there is room for a differentiation or a differentiated procurement approach. For instance, when you have emergency work to be done with soldiers being deployed on the border, you cannot wait for 90 days for a procurement or a replacement to be considered. By that time, our soldiers might have been killed already. The same applies for our soldiers being deployed to the DRC and to Mozambique. Surely, Defence Force, and especially in an operational environment, in a hostile environment, there must be a system differentiating from an ordinary government department that National Treasury will apply, and that maybe this new public procurement bill is also suggested. So has that been considered, and how will that assist us? Then in terms of the technology, we know that CITA is supposed to be the information technology agency of government that is supposed to guide us in this. To what extent are they involved, or is this a process, outside of CITA that is considered, and that we can run all on our own? I also just want, this whole idea that the Defence Force is different, and it cannot be a more centralized procurement office. Has that been consulted with National Treasury and Auditor General? Because if that is not, and they are of a different opinion, we will again run into problems. So I don't want to see a situation where personal egos are battling and the soldiers are suffering. Thank you very much, Chair.
In fact, Mr. Mare, on the location of procurement, whether it's civilian or within the uniform environment, I got to a point where I said it doesn't matter, for as long as the people who are given the job have met the minimum qualifications requirement. That it was required, it's by law that, or in terms of regulations, that the CFO must be a chartered accountant. Why must it be different when it comes to the Defence Force?
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
Whether that is in the brown environment, in the uniform environment, or is in the civilian, that person must meet the minimum requirement of the post that he is or she is occupying. But how they get around it, they give that person a different name, but then still retain the function. It's not the name we are giving, it's the function that is being performed. We can see that the functions of a CFO are there, under Chief Log, for example. But is the person given that responsibility at a level required for that person to carry out the function? Does he have the necessary qualification? That's the nub of the issue. I think I should expand on your question, Mr. Murray. And then over to you, acting CFO. Please deal with those concerns. I don't see any other hand.
Thank you, Chair, for the questions and the comments. I think, Chair, the questions that have been raised deal basically with the root cause, or the root causes of where we are as a department and why we continue getting these irregularities and the lack of management within the procurement-related environment within the Department of Defense. Hence, these action plans have been developed to try and deal with where we're dealing with. And if we actually did a whole introspection based on our previous presentations to the Portfolio Committee, the findings from the Auditor General, and our consistent qualifications on the completeness of irregular expenditure and the lack of controls within our procurement unit. And even the minister in her last two budget votes did indicate that our biggest challenge is number one, consequence management, number two, capacity, number three, knowledge and expertise, as you have all just raised now in terms of why are we having people that may not be qualified to do the job. And I think the other reason as a department why we are where we are is because of the way we are structured. That's number one. And number two, a bulk of what we procure are military related. Hence, procurement environment resided within the logistics environment, because the expertise in terms of what may be required from a provisioning point of view lies within the military. But we also did that introspection and realized at the end of the day, as Honorable Maria has indicated, you do require the right qualified personnel to be able to do the job. Hence, when Ms. Kumalo presented, she presented that when we do have these teams that manage procurement, you need to have expertise from a legal point of view, expertise from a finance point of view, expertise from the military point of view. So you have a whirlpool of people that have the right expertise to be able to manage procurement within the Department of Defense. And the question also was, why, when we do appoint people, how is that determined and what kind of qualified members do we get? 95% of our procurement practitioners are military people. So they are promoted generally into the post or rotated into procurement related posts. Hence, part of our action plan is, let's ensure we have a hybrid team with the right expertise to be able to deal with that. And I think we also concur that provisioning is important, because that's what the logistics environment is there for, that where there are emergencies, there is now a practice note from National Treasury. They came out in the year 2021 that talks about procurement by other means. And that deals with procurement in terms of emergencies, where the military requires to have emergency procurement. How do we manage that? So there are policies around how do we deal with emergency related procurement for our deployments to the borders or wherever we may be deployed to, and we need to procure within a short space of time. So the legislation allows us to do that, and with consistent interactions with the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer, we'll be able to deal with that. There has been a lot of questions around why you don't have a procurement or a Chief Procurement Officer within the Department of Defense. And I think we have spoken about that too. We do have the logistics environment that procurement resides that manages the actual day-to-day procurement. Then we do have within the Secretariat, the defense material environment that manages the policies around it and the acquisition of military-related equipment. Then the question that you also asked, Honorable Chair, was why do we still have this post of the procurement officer, but it's actually called the Chief Defense Material, that manages the policies around procurement and acquisition within the military environment. So he is a liaison, or he or she is a liaison between AMSCO and the different services and divisions in terms of acquisition, because we have acquisition and we have procurement. So acquisition is any military-related equipment that takes multiple years to acquire. That is acquisition environment. And then your question also was, do we need this person if within the last 2 years we haven't filled in that post? And we have presented to the portfolio committee in the past relating to the challenges we faced around managing the vacancies, the senior vacancies within the Secretariat. And the minister in her budget vote indicated that she has instructed the accounting officer to ensure these posts are filled as a matter of urgency. These are very critical posts. So I think once we have these engagements around the procurement management and contract management, we will be able to determine where best procurement is placed within the Department of Defense and what will be the role of the specific individual when that person comes in. I just wanted to respond to some of these things from an overview and a strategic point of view, but Ms. Fikile Kumalo is here to deal with the specific issues that have been raised by yourselves that if I haven't touched on, she'll be able to deal with those individual questions. Thank you, Chair. Fikile.
Thank you, Acting CFO. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, and the Acting CFO has covered most of the questions that have been asked, but to tap into some of the issues that were raised by Honorable Mare on how are we dealing with the current findings. As we have indicated that we are undertaking the regional workshops and we are undertaking the governance, risk, compliance, and accountability oversight visits. During those visits, what we do, we educate the officials on what is it that is expected from them. We encourage them to identify their irregular expenditure and disclose it. So our biggest problem is that they do not disclose the irregular expenditure. So it's not a situation whereby we do not know what is going wrong. We are aware what is going wrong and how it should be addressed. And that is why we are emphasizing the issue of digitization. And to allay the fears, Honorable Mare, we are taking the issue of digitization. And if I can talk to all the recommendations that we have put up, these recommendations are based on best practice standards. It's not that they are only based on the bill, but the best practice standards that we're looking at, if the bill talks to them, that is why we emphasize the point that the bill is also addressing the same issue. But when the presentation was done at the DOD work session, we were looking at best practice standards that we need to follow. The CFO touched on the issue of the capacity in terms of procurement being largely dealt with in the military environment, and also to have an understanding that procurement is a common post. Like we indicated, that procurement is not a mastering. So you don't continue growing the procurement team but within the same environment, because anyone who can come in the environment are brought into the environment. And then on the issue of the delegation, what the work session recommended is that we need to ensure that the chiefs of services and divisions have an increased role in terms of accountability for procurement. So we are looking at the delegation not only being given to the OCs of the unit, but the delegation being given to the chief of the service or division. And the chief of the service or division is going to be held accountable for why they have not procured or how did they procure. Any problem that arises in their environment, they will be held accountable for it. So it is going to increase accountability at a strategic level. The emergency issue has been addressed by the CFO, acting CFO. We are currently undertaking workshops to deal with the issue of procurement by other means, because in that we want the unique services and divisions to come and indicate to us what is it that has to be sourced by other means. And then we develop the processes and procedures of how we are going to source. Just instead of just having a procurement by other means, and then today you come and you say you are sourcing this, you source it this way. So it will be a standardized procedure. And then the last point on the issue of CETA, what we indicated in the presentation is that the ICT environment, that is the CMIS environment and the GITO environment, as technical experts are going to guide us on the process that we are going to follow, because they are the custodian of the department's relationship with CETA. So they will guide us on how we are going to go around the issues of digitization or technological improvement of our systems. Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Chairperson, maybe just before you come in, Honorable Maria also asked, and I think Honorable Mutley, when are we planning on implementing this? This is a big elephant. It's not something that we can deal with immediately, but we endeavor to take it one bite at a time. We do not want to continue with the findings from the AG and our continuous irregularities, but we're doing everything we can to try and implement as much of it in the current year, and latest by next year, we should be able to have, before the end of the financial year, at least have a system in place to be able to present to yourselves from a structural point of view, where are we and how are we planning on dealing with these individual challenges that we continuously have, in, such as the first two presentations, because I think those where our biggest challenges are when it comes to actually supporting our troops when we do deploy them. The food-related contract management, the uniform-related contract management, the fuel-related contract management, and obviously the ammunition. Those are the key transactions that we need to manage. And I think there was also around a question about the contract management also on some of these acquisitions. As I did explain earlier on, we have the acquisition part and also the procurement part. So the acquisition part, it also is dependent on whether the industry can deliver or not. Hence, there are funds that may not be spent at the end of the financial year because the industry could not deliver on their mandate. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you very much. We appreciate the efforts. But there again, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. Of course, some of the things are not new, acting CFO. the undertakings you are making are not very new, like engaging the School of Governance, training procurement officers and all that. I take it that once it's you are mentioning it today, it's not that you are still yet to do it. It's an ongoing. You are doing it. You are dealing with it. It's an ongoing thing. You are just mentioning it for emphasis. And what is lacking, I think, CFO, your presentation is good. It's there's a new term I learned just recently. I'll tell you what the term. It sounds, your presentation sounds, I'll tell you now. It sounds mellifluous. So and it's well articulated even today, and I can't fault it. Thabo was very spot on when he says it's implementation. And now, how do I monitor this, CFO? Remember, CFO, I'm left with how many months now from now? It's 5 months. It's 5 months and then another 5 months. With likely, I will left with 11 months with you. So now I want tighter time frames so that I can see what you are presenting here, starting to show a green, what do you call this thing that come out? Green shoots, huh? You know, I want to see this thing starting to show some results. Now, with this presentation, if we don't hold you to any tangible timeline or concrete plan with clear time frames, I can tell you, if we meet again next day, if I'm lucky and I'm able to be returned back to this committee, you'll be presenting the same thing. Timelines, is it possible for you to go away, just chatting up now in terms of timelines, what is achievable in the short term, what is achievable in the medium term, and what is achievable in the long term? Come and present that to us, so that we are then able to hold you to it. Both what was presented by General Jacobi, General Ngobo in the logistics, and yourself here, you know, that very clearly. I can see you have attending to this and you have good plans, and but largely on you, on this presentation. You can just pick on some of the things that the other two presentations made that needs tightening up in terms of, you know, being firmed up, you know, in terms of, you know, dates or when they must have been done. Can we agree that you look at that, acting CFO?
Thank you, Chair. Your recommendations are noted, and we will take it forward through to the acting SecDev and the PDSC, and we will revert back to you. But you are right. We need to commit. We need to take individual deliverables and then put timelines to it, and then give you an update on a continuous basis. So we will take it to the SecDev, to the Minister, and to the PDSC, and then we'll revert back to you on that. Thank you so much for the guidelines, Chair.
Thank you very much. It remains for me to thank you, acting CFO, and General Ndlovu Logistics, Deputy Chief Army, General Jacobi, and the team for a presentation this morning. We are making progress, and certainly the AG will be happy with the progress we are making. We're not doing it for the AG, but we're doing to maximize benefit to our soldiers, maximize benefits to our soldiers. And the citizens at large. And with that, I should thank you and the colleagues. We have gone over time, it's 22 minutes. Willem has wanted to put an item on the agenda on the APP. I don't think we have time for it. We are together. We are going on a visit to someone's town next week. I'll try to allocate 30 minutes to 1 hour during lunchtime to take the presentation on the APP of the committee. Colleagues, the visit, Mr. Mare, is physical. I'm sure you have not.
Yes.
Tabo, the visit is physical.
Yeah, thank you. In person.
No touch, Chair. I'll drive myself.
Same to you, Chairperson. Same to you.
Yes.
Eh?
No, I will remember that. The meeting stands adjourned until we meet again.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Chair.